Ever wondered how your great-great-great-great-grandparents navigated the wild waters of romance and intimacy? Well, today, we're about to embark on an eye-opening journey through time, exploring the diverse attitudes towards sex and relationships that have shaped societies throughout history. From the ancient civilizations that worshipped fertility gods, to the prudish Victorians who covered their table legs to avoid any scandalous thoughts. Each era, each culture, has its own unique approach to love and lust. It's a fascinating study that reveals not just how our ancestors courted and connected, but also how they thought, felt, and lived. It's not just about the birds and the bees, folks. It's about power dynamics, societal norms, and even economics. It's about understanding the human condition in all its messy, marvelous complexity. So, buckle up as we journey back to a time when swiping right involved actual swiping and ghosting was a matter of life and death. And let's start our journey in the steamy world of ancient Rome, a place where Netflix and chill had an entirely different meaning. Yes, my dear listeners, in the grandeur of the Roman Empire, the concept of sex and relationships was as free-flowing as the wine from the Bacchus's cup. In fact, the Romans were so open about it, they made the Kardashians look like the Von Trapp family. Roman society was a hotbed of carnal curiosities. They had an almost liberal outlook on sex, and their laws reflected this. For instance, did you know it was perfectly legal for a man to divorce his wife if she drank wine? Sounds absurd, right? But hold on to your togas, because it gets even crazier. In Rome, phallic symbols were considered good luck charms. You'd find them everywhere, from wind chimes in homes to amulets for children to public buildings. Yes, the Romans literally had their minds in the gutter, and they were proud of it. The Romans also had a rather unique take on adultery. While it was frowned upon, it was not for reasons you might think. It was less about the emotional betrayal and more about the societal disturbance it could cause. You see, in Rome, who you slept with was less about love and more about power and politics. Their festivals, too, were a sight to behold. Take the Bacchanalia, for instance, a festival dedicated to the god of wine and ecstasy. It was basically the ancient equivalent of a rave party, with the Romans indulging in all sorts of debauchery in the name of religious celebration. And then, of course, there were the infamous Roman orgies. Yes, those did happen, but not quite as often as Hollywood would have us believe. They were usually reserved for the elite, and they were more about networking and forming alliances than pure hedonism. So the next time you're feeling frisky, remember, the Romans probably did it first, and probably in public. Fast forward a few centuries to the Middle Ages, where chastity belts were the ultimate fashion statement. Ah, the Middle Ages, a period when the dating scene was as complicated as the knots in a lady's hairnet. The era was marked by a shift towards a more reserved approach to romance, as society started to place a higher value on modesty and chastity. The idea of courtly love was born, a romanticized, idealized version of love that was more about poetic verses and less about physical intimacy. Let's just say if you thought dating apps made the dating landscape tricky, imagine trying to woo your beloved by penning an epic ballad or composing a lute serenade. And remember, no emojis to hide behind, just a quill, some parchment, and your medieval version of charm. Yet, beneath the surface of this prudish exterior, there was a surprising amount of progressiveness. Women, for instance, were not just passive recipients of these romantic advances. In fact, many medieval texts reveal a recognition of female desire and sexuality, a concept that was surprisingly open for a time when women were largely seen as property. There's a delightful tale about a clever medieval dame who, when her suitor presented her with a love poem, responded by giving him a riddle to solve. The riddle, when solved, revealed her own feelings. Talk about a medieval mic drop. But let's not forget the infamous chastity belt, that iconic symbol of medieval purity. While they're often depicted as a common accessory for medieval ladies, they were more myth than reality. Historians believe they were actually invented by Victorian authors to add a spicy twist to their tales. So, while the Middle Ages might have been a time of chivalry and courtly love, it was also a time of surprising complexity and contradiction. It was an era that recognized the importance of love and passion, but also placed a high value on restraint and modesty. Ah, the Middle Ages, a time when playing hard to get could involve a literal suit of armor. Next stop, the Victorian era, where even table legs were considered too risque. Picture a world where even the mere hint of an ankle would cause a scandal, let alone the sight of a bare thigh. Welcome to the Victorian era, a time when prudishness reached its zenith, and the human body was considered something to be hidden, not celebrated. The Victorian era was a time of extreme modesty and propriety. The mere idea of sex was considered scandalous, and any discussion of it was strictly taboo. Women were expected to be pure and virtuous, while men were expected to be chivalrous and reserved. In fact, the social norms were so strict that even furniture was designed to be modest. Yes, you heard it right. Furniture. The legs of tables and chairs were often covered with cloth to prevent any indecent exposure. But don't let that fool you. Beneath the surface of this prudish exterior, there was a hidden world of Victorian brothels and erotica. Yes, even in the era of extreme modesty, human nature found a way to express itself. Victorian brothels were not just places of ill repute but also secret havens where men and women could express their sexual desires without fear of social ostracism. And then, there was Victorian erotica. These were not just crude drawings or lewd writings. No, Victorian erotica was a form of high art, celebrated by many for its beauty and eroticism. These works of art were often hidden away, only to be enjoyed in secret, away from the prying eyes of society. So, while the Victorian era may have been marked by extreme prudishness, it was also a time of hidden passions and secret desires. It was a world of contradictions, where the public face of propriety hid a private world of eroticism and sexual exploration. So, the next time you blush at a risque joke, just remember, your Victorian ancestors probably told it first ... in secret, of course. And here we are in the present day, where sexting is a thing and ghosting doesn't involve actual ghosts. Welcome to the modern morass of sex and relationships, where the rules of engagement have been rewritten by technology and evolving societal norms. Today's world is a melting pot of conflicting attitudes towards sex, with some celebrating the removal of traditional constraints, while others bemoan the loss of old-fashioned romance. The digital age has, without a doubt, revolutionized our approach to relationships. With the advent of dating apps, we've turned the complex art of courtship into a swipe-right, swipe-left game. One can find love, or at least a reasonable facsimile of it, with a simple tap on a screen. The internet has also opened up a world of information about sex, breaking taboos and challenging old stereotypes. Yet it's not all rosy in this brave new world. The ease of access and the anonymity that technology provides have also given rise to a culture of casual hookups and fleeting relationships. Ghosting, the act of disappearing from a relationship without explanation, has become a common phenomenon. We are more connected than ever, but some argue we are also more isolated as genuine human connections take a backseat to digital interactions. But let's not forget the positive side of the coin. The changing societal norms have brought a greater acceptance of diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. We are slowly moving away from rigid definitions of what constitutes a normal relationship, opening the doors to a more inclusive understanding of love and sex. The present day, then, offers a fascinating landscape of contrasting attitudes towards sex and relationships. It's a world where the traditional and the modern, the physical and the virtual, the conservative and the liberal, all coexist. And it's a world that continues to evolve, shaped by the ever-changing tides of societal norms and technological advancements. So, whether you're a swipe-right kind of person or a traditionalist at heart, just remember, our attitudes towards sex and relationships are as diverse as we are. Well, it's been quite a journey, hasn't it? We've navigated the sultry world of ancient civilizations where sex was as much a part of daily life as bread and wine. We've braved the turbulent waters of the medieval period, a time when courtly love and chivalry were the name of the game. We've lifted the heavy Victorian veil to reveal a society plagued by prudishness and stuffed shirts. We've waded through the tangled web of modern attitudes towards sex and relationships, a landscape as diverse as it is complex. From the free-loving ancients to the buttoned-up Victorians, we've seen how societal norms shape our perceptions of sex and relationships. We've learned that what's considered normal or acceptable can vary wildly across different times and places. And we've discovered that as much as things change, some things stay surprisingly the same. So the next time you find yourself navigating the complex world of modern romance, just remember it could be worse. You could be a Victorian,